Good afternoon. The time is 5:04, and we're calling this Liberation and Freedom Committee to order with a quorum of members present, both in the chamber and online combined. The first item will be item number 2, public comment for matters appearing on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience or online who'd like to give public comment? Apparently not. We'll move to item number 3, approval of minutes from January 19th, 2022. Could I get a motion?
This is Chris. I'll motion.
And a second. Ms. Kopitke. Any edits, changes, suggestions to the minutes in the packet? Then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. And for the new members, if you just switch on your mic when you're answering, then everyone, including public access, can hear you. Item number 4, welcoming of new members to the committee and committee member introductions. So why don't we just go around, whether you're a new or current member, just give everyone maybe a brief introduction and welcome aboard to the 2 new members we have today. Ms. Kopitke, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Kelly Kopitke. For those of you who are longtime residents, my maiden name is McCartan. I grew up in Wausau, but I found myself working in Boise, Idaho for 27 years as an educator. I recently retired there in Idaho. And one of the opportunities I had as a teacher was working for 7 years at an elementary school that was a large concentration of refugee students from literally all over the world. So I hope to be able to support the refugees among all of the other goals and actions we want to do on this committee, but especially working towards the communication factor in reaching out and helping them be welcome in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Grau?
Hi, I'm Bruce Grau. I've lived in Wausau for about 6 years. I retired here last year as a geriatric nurse practitioner. I also worked in palliative care. I'm a proud grandfather of a beautiful and bright 3-year-old grandson for whom I do this. I think of all the committees that I could be on as a citizen, this is the most important because we are dealing with fundamental rights that we need to uphold and solidify, and that is by engaging the public. Do we have a true democracy? And I hope that we'll be able to do that and really make some headway in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norfleet or Ms. Springer, would you like to go next?
I'll go next. Chris Norfleet. Been here for about 7 years. I do like the community, believe it's got some good possibilities, but from here on in, it's just all about how do we resolve issues.
Thank you. Ms. Springer? You may be having some technical difficulties. Let's try it now. Ms. Springer?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm having major audio issues. Did you hear any of what I said?
Unfortunately, we did not, but we can hear you now.
Okay.
I had to physically unmute you on my end.
Okay, I'll just talk. I'm Angela Spranger, and I have been back in Wausau now for about 11 years, and I got involved with the committee because I was just looking for a way to get more involved with the community.
Thank you. And I'm Tom Killian, older person of District 3, and just due to the rules of the committee and the foundational resolution, when the last chair stepped down, it is the appointed council member by the rules that is then chair. So that is why I'm sitting in this chair today. We'll move on to item number 5, review and discussion of video associated with Liberation and Freedom Committee report dated December 13th, 2021. I'll give some background on why I thought this would be positive today, particularly with 2 new members. So this video was associated with the committee report that we presented to the City Council. And in order to demonstrate to the council that these strategies and objectives had come from committee suggestions, we had put together a video, kind of a montage, just showing how these suggestions came up and served as the foundation of the report. So it's a brief video, about 2 minutes. If technology serves us, we'll be watching that momentarily. Gene, is there any way we could...
Having different representatives from community come in and have little bodies of community speak for themselves about what they want. And I think this would probably be also a good way to, like I said, reintroduce this body to the community.
I think before we can start setting objectives and goals and doing what we think the people want and they need, I think we should have some different voices coming in here.
I believe that we as a committee need to find ways to become more involved or make the community more involved so we all can find those barriers.
Another thing I do see that we have an issue with is communication. A lot of the reports, a lot of the minutes are in English. A lot of my elders can't speak or can't read or speak English. But again, they're the top dogs in our community. They're the ones who needs to be here. They're the ones who need communication-wise. They're the ones that we have to accommodate and we want them here.
How do we get the people in the chairs? I'm really struggling with, what are the action items? What can this committee do to do the community outreach to get the people in the chairs?
One of the functions should be to hold an event that welcomes people to come participate. It would be very beneficial for us to hold an event outside this room.
I was thinking what you also said, instead of having them necessarily come here in this forum, why don't we go where the people are at and have listening sessions? Going to the Hmong American Center or any place, we alternate the times, alternate the days, and go and have a listening session. Then we can also offer it, partially on Zoom, in person, so like kind of mix it up a little bit and brainstorm those ideas.
Thank you, Ms. Frankel. So the reason that video is kind of quite important is those suggestions from committee members served as the foundation for the priorities and potential strategies for implementation in the committee report that's in the packet and that was presented to the council. So today, in a later agenda item, we see that community engagement event. So this stemmed from the suggestions and the report, and especially for new members, when when potential future items are recommended or suggested for agendas, I think there are various buckets in this report or in these priorities and strategies that they could likely fall under. So just any discussion on this video or the content of the video? Some of you were in it. Yes, Ms. Kopicki.
So the two things that I heard out of that video, and I've also read all of the minutes that were available online and watched many of the videos of your meetings so that I would be up to speed. And the two things that I heard were the barriers that we're facing in reaching the community members and the people that are in need, and then also the desire simply to communicate in a way that reaches each demographic, each group. And one of the things that I found to be an observation I made over the years that I was working with this population of refugees was people use social media as their access point. Even if we're not consumers ourselves of doing a lot of social media, people have different issues with social media. When you don't speak the language, I'm speaking specifically to this group, your access point to information is social media, and I'm thinking primarily YouTube, which I did not realize initially, but I found that people used YouTube to learn English, and it translates to 100 different languages. So it's automatic. It sets them up. Now, the other platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they all reach a different age group and a different demographic group. And one of the things that I think is really important is to spend some time on the front end, us as a community, becoming comfortable putting our faces on those social media platforms, introducing ourselves. I don't foresee people leaving their homes and coming to this forum like you were mentioning. And we do need an event. But in the interim, I don't think we can wait for an interim, like a big time period. We really want to get people engaged now if we want to have some productive interactions as the summer months are coming. That's my hope and my goal.
Thank you. Any other comments or input from members?
Okay, this is Chris. Okay, and as to what she was just saying, I'm almost on the opposite end because I believe we have got to be more tangibly present, physically present, and I think holding events that are in person kind of can help us remove some of the toxic behavior of being online, because for the good that can come from it, we all know you also gotta be conscious of the negativity that comes with social platforms. And people often do and say things and create atmospheres online that they often won't do in public, because you're in public and you have to be there and live by what you say and do. And I think with the summer months coming, if we are starting to get past the COVID situation, I think that would give people an opportunity to experience some of community hand to hand. I think the greatest part of this initiative is to take a lot of the frustration, the anger, the hostility out of being citizens and city and actually work together, opposed to not having a place to gather and cooperate. Because right now the citizen is doing too much policing of the policymakers, opposed to having a healthy relationship with them. And so when we're talking about bringing in other community members, it also gives us an opportunity to reevaluate how we want to even introduce immigrants or even new community members to being a part of not just the city, but also the decision-making process. Ultimately, we would like the goal is to have people sitting in City Hall not angry, not upset, not antagonistic, but there because we know that's a civic responsibility, and that's how you cooperate with your city. So, yeah, I think you can do both, but I think for me, I really want to see a city start to connect more face to face, and where people can actually say, hey, you know, I've actually took 2 minutes and spoke to my representative and actually got a decent understanding of who that person is face to face.
Thank you. Any other, Mr. Grau?
Yeah, I think a person telling their story is a very powerful thing. It's their story. It's their narrative. It's not written by anybody else. And I think it's important that that's a way to connect with people and understand where people are coming from. And a lot of what we do, I think, will need to be set. We ourselves in the committee should look at setting the example of the kind of behavior, the kind of activity, the kind of interactions that we think are needed. I think telling our stories can be done through a social media platform, but I really think it comes down to the face-to-face, like Chris was saying, the door knocking, the canvassing, the getting of names and getting some commitments and following up with people and doing that legwork. Maybe they can't come to a meeting because they need childcare or they're working and it's their hours that don't work. We don't necessarily get that kind of conversation through social media, through TikTok or anything like that. So I think a lot of what we do needs it's boots on the ground. It's connecting with people face to face and us setting an example of what we want to see.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Ms. Kopicki?
So to clarify, I actually agree with both of you, and I don't want to limit my lane to social media. I think that the interaction with the community is key, definitely. But as a consumer of what's going on in the city, I moved back here 2 years ago, but I grew up in Wausau. There's not a lot of ways that I know what's going on in the city unless I seek it out specifically, going to a website, pulling up a link, following along. What I'm saying is the goal is, for one thing, for the community to know that we exist. So I'm talking about social media as an introduction, as a informational avenue, so that people even know we're here, so that they know they can come here. And so that's where I see social media more as a very formatted, systemic way that we use it, not a willy-nilly way, just very creative, but also it's something they know they can go to and resource back to. But definitely we need the face-to-face, for sure.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the committee? Well, great, and I think it helps to kind of show a framework for some of the priorities and strategies that the committee has put together to date, and there's probably plenty of opportunity for a mix of strategies and tactics moving forward. Then we'll move on to item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding generating increased awareness of Wausau PFAS drinking water advisory, including increased awareness of current and future language translations of the advisory. So I'd just like to provide a little background on this item. So there is currently a PFAS drinking water advisory that the DNR and DHS has been involved with, and unfortunately, even the English language version apparently was not distributed really in a pronounced fashion until some third-party outlets decided to do that themselves. But as we see, and most of the the members, maybe perhaps the new members have not reviewed our foundational resolution yet, but in 2019, when the committee was started, one of the objectives of having this committee was to identify issues and barriers to equality. So obviously, with health and safety, that's obviously relevant, and that is one reason that this item is on the agenda today. So you'll have 3 versions of an advisory in the package. There's an English language version, and then there are 2 new versions, a Hmong language version and a Spanish language version. And it is my understanding that through inquiries to DHS and DNR, ultimately the state did get a hold of the water utility and let it know that under administrative code, if certain parameters are met, then these in-language translations should be provided to the public. And as a mission of this committee, as I said, to address issues and barriers to equality, I think one of the questions before us now is how could we as a committee provide kind of advisory recommendations or opinions to generate increased awareness of these advisory documents. So I think they probably don't serve a great utility unless they are getting into the hands of citizens who need them. So that is the kind of goal of the discussion today, and I will just open it up to committee discussion, and please, all ideas are welcome.
Well, this is Chris. Can I say something here? Now, this is where I do believe the media outlets, because clearly they can have a greater range when it comes to reaching people with this type of information. It would be probably extremely good to have some capability when it comes to this type of information to get it on the ground and get it to people somehow to their door, whether it's hanging something on their door, whether it's knocking on the door, telling them, hey, look, this is the situation. It really depends on how serious we're going to take it. Now, I'm taking water under these circumstances to be extremely serious, right? So I kind of believe we've been dragging our feet as a city already as to not have this functioning media blitz telling people about the choices you have. And do you want to make the decision to continue drinking it or not? It's a lot harder to knock on 40,000 doors than it is for the news media, news people, the city to reach out and let people know that we got to take this serious. But before you can take it serious, you got to give them some options, I believe. And I believe that's also maybe where we would want to try to help distribute the solution, whether it's bottled water, filters. My one thing is that I'm almost just deeply concerned that we can't keep adding one more thing on Citizen Joe's plate to deal with. You know, because that's part of why nobody wants to participate, is because we got a lot of problems and a lot of it's not being solved. So is the water crisis just one more thing that's pushing people away from participating? And at some point in time, we got to kind of start resolving these things so people can have room in their life to participate in a healthy way, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Other comments, Ms. Kopicki?
So, Mike, I have a question. Would there be a, I'm going to answer yes to myself, but I'm going to just say, is there a city IT avenue in which we could create liberation and freedom accounts for, say, Facebook or whatever? So we have an avenue to read this type of information, and then I know I'm in District 2, but I'm in a pocket of a neighborhood where I'm not quite in the Southeast Side neighborhood and I'm not quite in the Longfellow neighborhood, so I belong to both Facebook groups. And I get my information about the city of Wausau and what's going on the neighborhood Facebook groups. And I'm assuming there's other Facebook groups for the other 9 neighborhood districts, I would think. I'm not 100% sure on that. But if we put something out, that could then be shared on something that people are already using. Because I agree with Chris, and I feel like this needs to be ASAP. I don't like to go backwards, I like to look forward. So going forward, people need information and solutions, and then be able to make their own decision. And blindsiding people is what makes people angry. And I feel like when they find out later, that's our job. That's one of the goals on this committee, is about communication. And this is a really good entry point, actually, to introduce ourselves. Here's what we have to share with you, and these are the platforms we're going to do it on. And I do think YouTube, especially a short video of just reading it, because it does translate. And it's sustainable for the future, no matter who comes here and speaks a different language. They can translate it and see us, and it can be the same thing linked to all the same platforms, actually.
Thank you. Yes, and currently, we do not, as a committee, have those pages or platforms. That's something we can pursue. And as an advisory committee, we often would have to then pursue that with the Common Council, but I think it would be worthwhile to put that on the list of action items in the future. What does currently exist is some video capabilities that we may potentially be able to tap into in line with your idea. And that's actually, the police do have some relevance to that. We have Deputy Chief Barnes here today. Would you be able or willing to provide any input on what video capabilities may be an option?
Sure. I think there's a couple things that might be relevant to this conversation that members of your committee might not be aware of. So, different than a nonprofit or different than an individual on social media, there are departments within the city that have social media accounts. The police department is one. I would strongly encourage everyone, like us, take a look at it. And that's relevant in 2 ways. One, it shows you some of the capabilities that we have with our videographer for the city, what type of productions he puts together in video editing. But also, because we are a government entity, we have to be every time we do something on social media, it becomes a record that has to be retained for open records request. So there is a process within the city to be able to do that. I don't claim to know how the process works, but it's not as easy as you or I starting a Facebook page or YouTube account. But so that does exist, and it's how an advisory committee for the city, and what would those requirements by law be to be able to respond to that. But in regards to, Mr. Killian and I have had conversations about the use of social media and the use of videos, and I've listened to everyone's comments tonight, and my 2 cents, since I'm not on your committee, but I always give it anyway, is going to be like, I think you have to have both, because I don't think it's possible for the members of your committee to knock on enough doors to garner enough excitement or knowledge of whatever it is that you're going to do. And we have found success as a city in using social media to do that. Some of that success comes from the quality of the productions that we can put together. So in this particular situation, what we had talked about is finding either members on the committee or members in the community that speak Hmong, that speak Spanish, that speak as many different languages as we think we have people in the community, and have them read the document. That's kind of boring. So the beauty of the amount of skill and the technology that we have is it can be being read, and it can go back and forth from the person that's reading. And I would think that the imagery you might want to see in a video like that to keep people's interest might be our water treatment facility, our new water treatment facility under construction. We're talking about water, we have a great big waterway that splits the city in half. And so to have B-roll footage that maintains people's interest in what they're looking at while also providing them information and whatever else that message is going to be. So that's something we're capable of doing right now and is available to this committee. The authority to do that through my lens comes from the mayor. And I've had a conversation with the mayor regarding this specific topic and getting this information and making it available to people that English wouldn't be their first language. She's very supportive of that. So if that's something this committee wants to ask for, I think it's something we can move forward on in pretty short order.
Thank you, that's great information. Any comments from, or questions, either one from the committee? Ms. Kopitke?
So just a quick question. So then, would you recommend then we use your platform to put the information through, or where would you see us being able to do that quickly, that already exists?
So, and for what it's worth, my kids would be like, you're the last person in the world that should be talking about how to create social media influence. I'm the deputy chief, but they don't give me the passcode to be able to post on social media. They find that to be a very dangerous and highly liable issue. So with that being said, like the police department will take other people's, when the fire department posts something, we like it and share it. When DPW puts out a snow emergency warning with some video that we do, we like it and share it. And our following at the police department is about 25,000 people. The goal for anyone that puts together their own social media account is that you have that you would have 40,000 people and you have everyone in the city that likes and follows your page to get that information. So in order to build that, it's utilizing other people and asking them to share it and the other organizations within the city to do that. So we wouldn't be posting Liberation and Freedom's message. We'd be sharing Liberation and Freedom's message on ours, I think, because I'm not the pro with that.
You're correct. So then we go back to, we need a platform to put the information on that has our name on it, or the city of Wausau. Is there a Facebook or, so that would be one place where we could start.
Yes, good point. And the city of Wausau, it does have a Facebook page, and these are things we'd have to make inquiries into in terms of if content like this could be shared on. I would think if it relates to public health and safety from a state-issued drinking water advisory, we should not have much trouble seeking that support, but we'd still have to inquire into that. I think what the deputy chief has described would be a way almost immediately in the very near future through video to get this message out in language. Any other comments from the committee? I tend to support this as part of the mix of tactics we would look at or recommend. Mr. Grau?
25,000, that's an awesome number.
Hey, when you throw a snowball and you drill the mayor in the back of the head and it goes viral and 1.5 million people watch it, then
Are
at
you
least
suggesting
25,000 hit follow.
we should do that to the deputy chief of the police department?
His head
Next.
moves too much. He's hard to
Oh,
hit.
He won't get as many hits. Is there any, just to try to think outside the box, is there any way to contact all 17,000 households? I mean, we're talking about a water crisis. It's not just, a water issue. It's a water crisis. Does the city have the capability of reaching every household in this city?
I think that's a great question, Mr. Grau, and what we could, I think, do with this item is perhaps put together a set of advisory. The city does have a newsletter I think we're all aware of, and we could provide an advisory opinion that may be to the mayor's office, and we're just an advisory committee, so we can't pull the trigger on that without, presenting that request and having it approved. But we could look into requesting that the advisory be sent to the newsletter list of residents. And that doesn't mean that request will be granted, but it's one we could make. as part of the set of advisory opinions.
Just
Ms.
so you know, the city newsletter is going to have the water information in it. In fact, we're holding it right now. It's done, and we're just waiting for the final pieces for the water filters and the water distribution. So that will be going out to all of the residents.
That is excellent news, and will it be in all 3 languages currently provided?
No, the newsletter is only in English. However, it is online, and that it's Adobe, so it should translate.
I think my opinion would be that in our recommendations on this item, we recommend that the advisory be provided in English, Hmong, and Spanish in the newsletter, just given the weight of the situation. We can forward that request along. It may not be granted. But in the end, we'll probably need a motion today, and I think what we have on the table now is video capabilities, as the deputy chief described. We've got a request to be included in the city newsletter, which would reach most mailboxes. Any additional discussion or suggestions? And we do have a member of the public, and yes, Mr. Denny.
Hi, Doug Denny, 708 Fulton, if it's not out of line. Do we not mail bills, water bills to customers anymore, or is that all electronic? I would think we could stuff a bill envelope with this information and get all the ratepayers. Pretty low cost because you're already sending a letter. Put the advisory in for the right.
The water bills go quarterly, so the timeliness may or may not work. And I think in certain circumstances, if it's a rental property, it's not going to necessarily go to the renter. It's most likely going to go to the homeowner, and you're going to miss probably the most at-risk demographic that you're looking for.
Potentially, sure. I guess my recommendation is put it in more than one spot.
Right.
And that's a pretty easy one at a low cost, in my opinion.
Thank you for that input.
Yeah, I don't think it can be expressed enough in many different forms. And are we still talking about about approaches towards getting the word out about the water advisory?
That's correct.
We're
And
still
we
talking
need
about that?
to stick to the, as agendized, so it would be,
Yeah.
yes, increasing awareness
Okay.
of the advisory.
Because think of places that people might go or organizations they might engage in that they trust and would pay notice of. Places of worship. Have we contacted places of worship? Cultural, social, ethnic agencies. There is a Hmong radio station. Do we have contact with them? Those are the ones off the top of my head that people tend not to think of, but those are, we're talking about reaching people through voices they trust. I think those are some places to start with.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Kopicki?
I was wondering if you could read the advisory tonight. It would be on YouTube, and we could link it, or we could start another part 2 to the meeting.
I think,
I'm just jumping in because
Yes.
those are the kinds of things where I'm like, we're going in circles, but we have a YouTube account. People go to this, I go to it, people go to it to get information, and if we labeled it, what it was, and it would be very obvious, and then it could be shared, because YouTube can be shared anywhere on Facebook. I'm just talking about getting it out, reading it, and I also think we can't limit it to the 3 languages. We don't know for sure, but we can put it in a format where the user has their preferences set up to their language. It automatically translates it.
I think, if I may, on that, so each YouTube video has a link often to the packet or the agenda. The packet is online, and it does include the the advisory in English, Hmong, and Spanish. So I think for the sake of time efficiency tonight, we may be better if citizens access the packet. However, I do think that it sounds like the video could be done in the very near future. Deputy Chief, did you want to
Yeah,
add
I
some?
just wanted to reinforce what you just said, that I think there's value in it being expedited. I think there's also value in the production quality and having it all packaged with not having to be translated through an app. So I think that as long as we can arrange for individuals that can read and speak Hmong and read and speak Spanish to be able to participate in this video, like there's not a whole lot of editing that has to go on. It's someone reading a document. So I think that can be done rather quickly. And I think the bang for the buck, like maybe I'm biased because they work for us and through the police department, but Ethan, our videographer, does a fantastic job, and there's a artistic component to it that catches people's interest, and I think that adding that to this message is more likely to get it shared, because if just your city department shares something, that goes out to, like, the true value in something going viral is people sharing it, the citizens sharing it because they find it interesting or they find it valuable. So my advice would be, like, give us a few days to crank that out and figure out who can read that and put something together. And I also think it's a stepping stone for this committee to look at what you have done, what's produced based on the recommendations or requests of this committee, and I think that sparks, creative problem solving to use those experiences to then figure out, like, what's an alternative way for us to use the tools and resources available to you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And to your earlier comment, Mr. Grau, so with contact of different groups and agencies and so forth, my understanding is that the DNR will be interfacing with the utility on some level in order to gauge how this advisory has been distributed in the languages and so forth. So it's my presumption that there's going to be an expectation outside of our committee, but with regulators and the utility, that they do perhaps some of the things that you've described. So I think very good points, but kind of falling a little bit more on, I believe, the city at large and the utility. So,
All right.
Mr. Norfleet.
Did you not? I got to leave early. The one problem I'm not sure about is that we're advising people of some. Do we have a solution for them? I mean, like, do we have water drops? Are we in possession of filters for them to obtain? Or are we just telling them that the water is bad and we ain't really sure what to do? Because, I mean, along with telling them that the water isn't up to par, I would hope that we have some economical solutions that is not going to make the average citizen's life a hurdle, because I think we also got to maintain a reasonable consciousness that we're dealing with a variety of economic bases, and everybody don't have the time, energy, and capability to pay attention to these things because they have a different economic status, so they have different issues to deal with. So you do have the middle class and those who are going to have an easier time obtaining these things, and then you have people who live in apartments and rural areas and things of that nature, whatever Wausau's got for rural area. So therefore, we got to kind of think about, are we offering solutions at the time of alerting them of these issues? I know there are some solutions out there at this time, but you're telling them that the water bad, but are we telling them what they can do about it and how the city is there to recover? Because the last thing I think citizens want to hear is, here goes your solution, but you're going to have to pay for it. Or you're going to have to wait until whenever we're going to do it. So I think, part of what telling them the problem. It is on us to try to figure out how to get solutions to them too, and communicate with them so that frustration don't set in. But otherwise, I'm gonna have to let you guys go. It was an awesome meeting.
And Mr. Norfleet, before you take off, because we will lose our quorum and we'll have to
Oh,
adjourn
okay.
it, that may we proceed with a motion prior to your departure?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I would answer your question in a different scenario in which we had more time, but it seems that's not the case right now. So I would put forth a motion to have the police department move forward on a video related to the 3 drinking water advisories in 3 different languages that have been provided by the utility, while also this committee providing an advisory opinion to the mayor's office that all 3 language advisories be included in the city newsletter. Would there be a second for that motion?
I
Mr.
second that motion.
We've got seconds all around. We'll call it from Mr. Grau formally. He got his hand up first. So all in favor? Aye. And please have your mics on. Yes, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. And because Mr. Norfleet has to depart, we'll lose quorum. So could I get a motion to adjourn? From Ms. Kopitke, is there a second?
I second that motion.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Sorry, guys, it was a good meeting, though.
It was good. Thanks for coming. I'm glad I met.
Peace and love.